The first presentation that we will have here is on the CD-REDD project and the proceedings. It will be by Reinhard Wolf, who is the Senior Advisor for REDD Plus within the German agency, GIZ. He is a forester by training, and he has more than 30 years' experience with GTZ or GIZ. Spent more than 10 years in Africa and 5 years in Bhutan. And he's been the REDD focal point of the EU, so was very much involved in the successful completion of the Warsaw framework for REDD Plus. Reinhard, we're very pleased to have you with you. The floor is yours. Before he starts, can I have the other presenters please come up and join me on the podium? Thank you.
Benutzen die Tasten, also die Maus, wie es dir am liebsten ist, oder? Hast du wahrscheinlich auch. Ja, habe ich noch nicht probiert, aber bestimmt. Okay.
So thank you very much, Mette, and also good morning, colleagues, and I also welcome on behalf of GIZ, the German International Corporation, as Mette indicated, which was a merger from GTZ, the old GTZ, German Technical Corporation, and the German Volunteer Service, and the German Capacity Building Organization called Invent. And I would like to present the project proceedings of what we call this acronym CD-REDD 2. And I will be quite short because there will be more country-specific presentations later. And so this will be just giving a short overview. I will talk a little bit about the project structure, our approach, and where we are now, and I will give some conclusions. So now some key project data. So Daniela this morning, she mentioned CD-REDD 1 and 2, and so we started already in 2008 with a so-called, well, that time we call it CD-REDD, capacity development for REDD. And it were mainly 4 global workshops we had, and I remember we had a wonderful workshop in India, Dehradun, with Jagdish on national forest inventory. We also had one in Brazil at INPE. And then some time ago, I was not present, but I know it took place and it was quite successful. And then we had 2 also in Germany, in Berlin and in Bonn. And then so this was on a global level. There was the thinking, well, we need to go down a little bit more on the ground. And there was a proposal made to be more specific, also country-specific. And we call it CD-REDD 2, which was then more or less in continuously starting in 2009. It was planned to go until December last year. And German government, BMU, agreed to an extension for half a year, also to give probably, and this was discussed this morning, the possibility to other donors maybe to look into and maybe to continue also this activity to support. Budget, CD-REDD 1 was €250,000, and then for this second phase, it was 3 million plus 270,000, not million, but 1,000 from, no, 0.273 exactly again from German Environment Ministry within this International Climate Initiative, ICI. And it's operating on the global level, but also in 12 to 13 project countries. And the main partners, it's illustrated here. So it's funded by German Ministry for Environment, and then they have they have commanded GIZ to be the implementing agency, and there were the Coalition for Rainforestation and the German Thünen Institute, which is on a technical level also doing greenhouse gas inventory in the forestry sector for Germany to do capacity development in those countries. And then there are a number of partners. We didn't list all of them, but the main is the UN Climate Secretariat based in Bonn. and then FAO with also UN REDD program, and then US AID and US EPA. And as a matter of fact, I think it's fair to say that the concept of the project was more or less based off a concept which was developed by the US Environment Protection Agency, and they have implemented it already in Central America and other parts of the world. So here again an overview over the project countries. So the coalition team mainly engaged in Latin America, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, Suriname, Guyana, and in West Africa, Liberia, Nigeria, Ghana, and then the Tunin Institute in Southern Africa, and they did it in close cooperation with US EPA in Botswana, Malawi, Namibia, South Africa, and Zambia. Now, we have discussed it already this morning, importance and challenges for national greenhouse gas inventory system. It was stated also, I think, by Kevin this morning that national greenhouse gas inventory are central to policy making. We have now this UNFCCC process. We have decisions about also REDD, and we will talk about it later. And then these data, and we had the saying this morning, if you cannot manage, if you don't measure it, they are key also input to national development and to mitigation planning. And inventories are a precondition for international results-based mitigation funding, and especially in terms of REDD. And since we have now this REDD framework, which has been finalized in Warsaw, I think it's the kind of start race also for funding now has really started now, and countries, if they are ready, I think they have a certain advantage. Now, those are, I think, this is the importance, but then there are also challenges. We all know, and the countries who are involved, they know it sometimes in a painful way, that inventories require a sound understanding on the methods to be applied, and that data availability and reliability are limited. And this can be a challenge then when it comes to mitigation funding, and that institutional arrangements for inventory teams are often not appropriate. Now, coming to the project, we have a number of outputs and components. So it's in-country capacity building to prepare national greenhouse gas inventory for the AFOLU sector. It's a focus on forestry, but as I said, I think in Southern Africa, EPA, US EPA, they take the agriculture part. So in fact, it's also targeted to the whole AFOLU sector. Even the focus is on these forest-related aspects. And it's actually in the graph, it was 12 countries. Originally, I think it was 13 or also 12. We have added one, but Argentina, I think, was one of it, and I think it was partly discontinued, this cooperation. So what are the components? We agreed in the project context that we have up to 5 global workshops. This is one of them. And a number of regional workshops, and then a lot of national in-country trainings per country, up to 5. And then, and this also will be presented, I think, tomorrow, online training course. And then, since part of this exercise was that the countries prepare inventory report, that this will be kind of external reviewed by specialists as an exercise. So now these were the outputs and components, and when we have also indicators, and this is a little bit also thinking of German development cooperation, that indicators for us are the most important elements of a project. You can have 1,000 workshops, but you are not sure whether they have an impact, you know, and we formulate the indicators to really indicate what is the impact. And we have just 3, and then one impact we expect is that 70% of the participants of these training activities apply the methods and tools in their countries. And we verify this with tests and questionnaires, and I was told the achievement is we even overachieved. This is not just 70%, but 95%. So very positive. The second one is that 70% of participating countries submit a draft report on a Tier 1 greenhouse gas inventory in the land sector. Even this target has been achieved, slightly overachieved. It's about 75%. And the third indicator was, and this you may ask, well, what is the relation of this to the project, that 70% of project countries nominate candidates that participated in the training activities for the UNFCCC roster of experts. And of course, this has no direct relevance maybe for this project, but especially now with the results we have achieved in Warsaw with this REDD framework, it is very clear that, and we have a decision on reference level. And if you look at this reference level will be assessed by experts from the roster of experts. And in future, I think if countries are submitting their national reference levels, there will be many experts required, and especially from developing countries. I think there is a rather shortage. And so it's also a positive result. So that we have, the baseline actually was that already half of those countries have nominated candidates, and the objective was to lift it up to 70%, and this was achieved. This was just the number of countries. I don't have the number of experts actually nominated, but I think we can find out. I'm just wondering whether there is anybody here who has been nominated during this lifetime of the project and will be maybe then, if selected, undergo courses and so on. I'm not sure whether there is anybody present. If not, I think we can find out. But definitely the message is clear, and maybe Jigme from the Climate Secretariat can confirm it. I think there is a need for experts in this roster of experts. Okay, so this one I also only will touch very briefly because 95% of you know this much better than me, and so it's mainly for people probably who are not that familiar with the project. The quality criteria for national greenhouse gas inventory, its institutional arrangements, quite important. Inventory management, transparency, it's part of also IPCC criteria, accuracy, completeness, consistency and comparability. And I think we will have later in the day and also tomorrow with the country presentations some more information where the countries are and how much more they need to do. So this is more in a graphic illustration, this cycle, and I think this morning Ms. Yao, she illustrated the key principles for FAO, for cooperation, and this is reflecting also this a little bit, that you just start where the country is, you know, and then you prepare this inventory, you plan, you prepare, you evaluate the improvements, and maybe you say, well, I still need to do more, and so on. So it's a continuous process, and it definitely requires also ownership from the country. So this is I will not go here into detail, just to illustrate that the project staff and the team in the countries have been quite busy over the last few years. So we have in this events part, the top blue line are the global workshops. We also had a side event in Warsaw, I think, which was well attended. And then there are a number of regional meetings and trainings, and then there are quite many in-country meetings and in-country trainings. So this was very intensive work, I think. Now, and this you also will probably hear more in detail tomorrow. This is part of the brochure which will be launched tomorrow, a graph on the project status of countries. And we have not, we have anonymized the countries, but it's representing the 12 countries where they the status which they were at the beginning of the project, this is the green line, and the red line, the advancement, during the project lifetime, and this is very positive. It's, I think, if you look at the top very first country, which was most advanced, that then the progress usually is not very dramatic. This is logical. What is very encouraging, that countries which have been quite behind, for example, the very lowest country at the very bottom, made tremendous progress. And so this also is a very positive development. And so if you look at the different criteria, so in all the aspects, there have been progress. And this may be other experts who are more involved in this, and we can discuss later. It seems that comparability and consistency was already very high, and that's why improvement, I think, was still difficult. If you are at the top, I think it's difficult to further improve. But tremendous progress was, for example, in accuracy, which was very low at the beginning, and then it was quite good progress. I'm coming to the conclusions, which you always also will find in the brochure. One conclusion is that, well, we have made a lot of progress, but countries still need to advance further before they are able to participate in a full-fledged greenhouse gas accounting system, and especially taking into account what has been decided in Warsaw with reference level decision and MRV decision and so on. And then putting in place and running a high-quality national inventory system is demanding. Everybody knows, and now I think the countries know even more who are involved in this capacity-building process. It affects many levels of administration, and effective capacity development also needs to focus on institutional arrangements and inventory management aspects, as well as on data collection. One thought which I just have when it comes to institutional arrangements, I remember when we had kind of kick-off discussion with the US EPA, we discussed what is one of the biggest challenges, and one, I remember what you said from your experience, was that the shift of personnel. So there can definitely a problem now if people are trained, and then if they are transferred to somewhere else, and this knowledge then somehow is lost. And this definitely is one aspect. Of course, it would be much more profitable and productive if the people who are trained can remain in this position and can do this job as long as possible. And before they leave, they should train others, so that there is no gap. Then the third one is, so there is progress, but and also what has been shown with these arrows, in the graphs before, that with also this training and also external support, significant progress can be made in a relatively short time frame. This is quite encouraging. And the last one, and this also has been mentioned this morning, I think, with these FAO principles, and which is country ownership, that in-country support from relevant political institutions dealing with climate change and data collections is important, and maybe it's even the most important element. So this is, I'm coming to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much, and you will hear much more and much more details, I think, in the course of the day and tomorrow. Thank you.
The first presentation is on CD-REDD in Liberia by Anyaa Vohiri, who is the Executive Director on the Environmental Protection Agency of Liberia. Anyaa has a Master's of Arts in Asian Studies, but perhaps more pertinent to this work that she's doing at the moment, also a degree in environmental law. And she's actually been the lead drafter of several of the recent environmental laws in Liberia. And she's responsible in her current position for climate change, environment, and REDD+. Anyaa, you have the floor.
He says I'm too short. Excuse me, the technical part of it again? I will be. Good morning, everyone. In my country, we usually see all protocol observed. That way you don't miss anybody. Platform guests, also our valuable donors and partners of CRFN who've made this possible. It's a pleasure for me to be here. I appreciate that I was invited to take part in this conference, to learn what others have done, and share what we have accomplished. Generally, this is what I'm going to be following. The background, a little bit about our activities, our achievements, and what we suggest as the way forward. And also, I would like to thank Daniela for the good news. Liberia is a party to UNFCCC. Liberia is a member of CFRM. We've been pretty much supported by this organization. Liberia is important to this process simply because we have approximately 40% of the remaining Upper Guinea forest. Liberia also is a participant of the World Bank Forest Carbon Partnership Facility, FCPF. In 2012, the REDD+ Readiness Preparation Proposal, RPP, was approved by World Bank. In 2013, actual work of the REDD+ preparation activity started with the recruitment of the National Project Coordinator, procurement, hiring the procurement specialist, strategic, environmental, and social assessment, CISA, and the REDD Technical Working Group that does most of the work in Liberia. This project provides the opportunity for national capacity building to establish a national team to prepare an inventory report for agriculture and LU, I always get this wrong, LULUCF sectors. These two sectors are critical as they relate to the REDD process and our second national communication report. Here we have a brief draft of our activities. what we've done from 2011 to where we are now. I'm hoping that we are one of those arrows that went a little bit further. 2011, regional workshop. We also, 2012, we had a regional data collection workshop in Berlin, data gap workshop in Liberia, where the team from the coalition came to work with us. 2014, our reporting conference, now, data processing workshop in Rome. All of these have been possible with the support of the coalition and, of course, the support of our donors to the coalition. And we are asking that that support continues. Our achievements so far: we established a national institutional framework for GHG inventory for agriculture and LULUCF sectors, building of capacity of national GHG inventory experts in both, again, agriculture and LULUCF. One of those national experts participated in the recent training in UNFCCC expert reviewers training course in Vietnam, and is expected to be listed on the roster of UNFCCC reviewers. So we're very proud of that. Establishment of sustainable national GHG inventory team for, again, those two sectors, agriculture and LULUCF. Participation of draft GHF inventory report for, again, those two sectors, agriculture and LULUCF. I think these constraints will be familiar to most of us from the developing countries, most of us from the members, those of us who are participating in this. Budgetary allotment is a problem for most of us. And especially when we hear how important the development countries with forests are into the reduction of emission. So it's very important that we take full and be cognizant of the kind of support we need to make sure that we do contribute to the reduction of emission. In Liberia, we don't have allotment to the inventory team. There's no logistical support. So even when they go out to collect surveys, it's a problem. I haven't been able to give them a computer, nor a vehicle. This is like begging, so it's very important for us. No transportation. Again, if you're saying that 14 GT is from these countries, 9 of them are from agriculture and LULUCF, then you have to be conscious of how important these countries, with forests still remaining, how important we are. And here, I would say that I think there's only 11 of us in this process. I think someone did mention it. We need support for maybe 50 more for it to really be meaningful. So I'm appealing to our valuable donors, first of all, to thank you for the support we've already gotten, but to ask you for more. Oh, sorry. We have to go back. This is where my capacity is lacking. Seriously. Even for smartphones. The last one. Yeah, just the last slide. Way forward. We need the possibility of maintaining draft inventory data into the second national communication of Liberia. We need technical backstopping for continuous support and rehearsal for the inventory team. to continue its work updating and also being up to date on the software that they're using. As I said before, we need support. And we also need to include the other companies that must be here because they do have forests that is very important to this process. I thank you very much for listening.
The next one is to look at the results achieved under the CD-REDD project and the first step needed in the Dominican Republic. We have Matos here, who's replacing Pedro Garcia, who hasn't been able to arrive on time. Edwards is head of the greenhouse gas inventory team in the Dominican Republic within the Ministry of Environment and Natural Resources. His presentation, his speaking will be in Spanish, but the presentation on screen is in English, and we do have interpretation here as well. Edwards, the floor is yours.
Gracias. Muy buenas tardes. Como ustedes ven, acá está el nombre de Pedro García, es mi jefe. Estuvo supuesto a venir antes, pero por problemas de tránsito de vuelo no pudo estar a tiempo.
Thank you very much. You see here the name of Pedro Garcia, who is my boss actually, and he couldn't come because of flight problems.
Bueno, podemos empezar. La República Dominicana tiene la parte del Caribe, la comparte con Haití y es parte de la isla Hispaniola, y estamos en la parte este de la isla y ocupamos una tercera parte de ella. Yeah.
The Dominican Republic occupies 2/3 of the island of Hispaniola, which it shares with Haiti.
Sí, por los trabajos que hemos hecho en las comunicaciones nacionales sabemos que somos vulnerables al incremento del nivel del mar, a la frecuencia y la intensidad de los huracanes. Y tenemos una extensión territorial de unos 48.442 kilómetros cuadrados. Casi el 60% es aforestado.
Our vulnerability as a country is due to the rising sea levels and the frequency and intensity of hurricanes that hit our country. The surface of the Dominican Republic amounts to 48,442 square kilometers, 67% of which are covered by forests.
Como vemos acá, ratificamos la convención en octubre de 1998 y el protocolo en el 2002. Desde entonces el Ministerio es quien ha estado trabajando con la parte de cambio climático. Ahora tenemos otro organismo que es el Consejo para el Cambio Climático, que también nos ayuda en ese sentido.
The Dominican Republic ratified the convention in October 1998 and the Kyoto Protocol in 2002. Since 1998, the Ministry of Environment and Natural Resources has been taking care and dealing with the issue of the change of climate.
Como vemos acá, de acuerdo a nuestra Estrategia Nacional de Desarrollo para el Cambio Climático, la República Dominicana está supuesto a incrementar su GDP per cápita en unos de 5.200 a $12.500. Aún así, estamos trabajando para que nuestras emisiones no sean tan aumentadas y podamos, según los estudios que hemos hecho, reducirla en un 65% para el 2010. Yeah.
According to our development strategy, the Dominican Republic counts on increasing the per capita GDP by 148% from $5,200 to $12,500 by 2030. However, we have to obtain these gains by reducing at the same time the carbon emissions, and we're working in this direction.
Claro, esto es mirando a un futuro para integrar lo que se ha aprendido directamente con el factor humano y con la capacidad institucional. Claro, esto se va a hacer integrando lo que es la capacidad institucional, el factor humano y todo directo con el cambio climático.
Obviously, all of our efforts will be directed to improving human capital and facing climate change.
En un escenario BAU, nuestras emisiones aumentarían desde un 40% en unos 20 años. Diríamos que de 36.000 megatoneladas de CO2 aumentaríamos para el 2030 en un escenario tendencial al 2010 a unos 50.000 toneladas. Esto se traduciría en un aumento de 4.3% per cápita.
In a normal scenario, the intensity of greenhouse gas emission in the Dominican Republic would still increase by approximately 40% in the next 20 years, passing from 36 to 50 megatons or million metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. And this would translate into per capita emissions amounting to 4.3 tons per person per year in 2030.
Estos serían, estas emisiones absolutas serían vistas en 13 sectores que son los más importantes, sería energía, transportes y la parte forestal.
These greenhouse gas emissions are concentrated mainly in 3 sectors, which are energy, transport, and forestry.
Por eso diríamos que fuera de ello, ¿no? La parte de forestal sería bastante importante para nosotros. Sería uno de los sectores que estaríamos trabajando y estamos trabajando con la parte del inventario.
And forestry is one of the sectors we are most interested in, and we're working at it.
Pero viendo aquí, ya un poquito más entrado en el tema, lo que ha sido la capacidad que hemos recibido de la parte de REDD, cómo iniciamos. La República Dominicana ya ha estructurado la parte de su team para el inventario de gases de efecto invernadero en el sector AFOLU.
And thanks to the capacity taught us by REDD, we have already been structuring our capacity for inventory writing.
Y como ven acá, está estructurado en diferentes áreas. Estamos hablando de la parte de agricultura, la parte de foresta, livestock y ciencias ambientales.
Mainly, we concentrated on our studies on forestry, agriculture, livestock, and environmental science.
Empezamos la preparación del inventario o parte de los entrenamientos en el 2012, principalmente con el software AFOLU, Land Use Change and Forestry and Livestock. Y tuvimos la visita de expertos desde el REDD en el 2012 también.
We started to prepare our inventory on greenhouse gas with a training workshop in early 2012 with the use of AFOLU software, land use change and forestry and livestock. And an expert from REDD visited the Dominican Republic in March 2012.
Sí, después de varios, nosotros hemos hecho varios inventarios, pero no lo hemos realizado en el país con capacidad técnica, sino que han venido de otros lugares, por ejemplo, expertos cubanos, a hacer esta parte del inventario.
We already wrote a series of inventories which have been carried out, however, not with UN REDD systems, but with the help of other experts, most of them coming from Cuba.
Yeah. Como ven acá, hemos hecho varios inventarios, 1990, 90-94, 98-2000, y todos utilizando la guía de la IPCC. Ahora estamos trabajando con la parte de AFOLU software y estamos desarrollando la parte del IPCC y estamos trabajando en 1996-2006.
We have already drafted a series of inventories, 1990, 1994, 98, 2000, using the IPCC guide. And now we are using the ALU software methodologies developed with consultancy studies, consistent with the revised 1996 and 2006 IPCC guidelines.
Estos son parte de los entrenamientos que hemos tenido por la parte de CD-REDD. Como le dije, el taller de despegue fue en marzo del 2012 en Santo Domingo, República Dominicana, y así hemos continuado. El Data Collection Workshop en mayo y junio del 2012 en Berlín. El Data Gap Field Workshop en 2012 en Santo Domingo. El Processing Workshop en noviembre de 2012 acá en la FAO y el Data Processing Workshop 2 en febrero en Santo Domingo, y ahora tuvimos el último el 27 de mayo, del 27 al 31 de mayo acá en Berlín, Alemania.
This is a series of workshops we have been attending, and you can read them by yourselves. The kickoff workshop in March 2012 in Santo Domingo, the data collection workshop in Berlin in 2012 also, the data gap fill workshop 2012 Santo Domingo, the data processing workshop 1 in November 2012 here at the FAO, data processing workshop 2 in February 2013 in Santo Domingo, and the last one was the Inventory Training Center in Berlin, 27-31st of May 2013.
¿Qué hemos logrado? Bueno, terminamos lo que es el inventario, el draft del inventario, conteniendo informaciones importantes para la tercera comunicación nacional y para el Biannual Report en el 2013. Este inventario o este sistema que hemos compuesto sería como la piedra angular de nuestro trabajo, porque tenemos varias NAMAs y eso nos ayudaría bastante, y con la parte de red también. También sería de gran ayuda para lo que sería la construcción de inventarios para inventarios futuros para nuestro país.
What has been achieved up to today, by the end of 2013, the Dominican Republic delivered an inventory draft containing the fundamental data for the third national communication and the biannual update report. The inventory systems work will be fundamental and a cornerstone for the country's mitigation strategy, and will allow for actions such as NEMAs and REDD+. Also, we will need, and it will be very helpful to have guidelines for country future greenhouse studies and preparations.
Futuros planes para mejorar estos inventarios son muchas. Estaríamos estimando la parte forestal ya para las plantas nativas. Estaríamos también teniendo nuevos mapas con informaciones satelitales del REDD, informaciones que tenemos gracias al gobierno de Alemania que nos ha cedido estas imágenes satelitales y creemos que podemos hacer mejor inventario con esto. También vamos a tener nuevos mapas para el futuro para poder mejorar la parte de nuestros inventarios para el 2014.
What our future plans are, we are now studying, making a forest inventory with precise maps in order to calculate growth factors for native plant and tree varieties. And we have to thank the Republic of Germany for the studies they provided us, rapid eye maps, which were made available and will be used by us for the next years. The data spread over a longer period of time and will enable us to change in the future our guidelines. New maps and studies will be available by the end of 2014 and will be used in the next years.
Siguiendo con las mejorías, también estamos procesando varios talleres, la parte de REDD, y tenemos ya un diagnóstico de país de lo que sería la parte de REDD. También estamos consultando la parte de GAL para la tenencia de la tierra y desarrollar esa parte, ya se hizo en el país. También tenemos que crear la capacidad en la parte de REDD y visualizarlo más con la parte del inventario. También estamos trabajando en varios mapas que nos serían de beneficio en la parte futura, ya para la parte regional y nacional.
We have now started the process of training on the basis of the National Working Group of REDD+, and we are creating a capacity for diagnostic studies and adaptation to climate changes. We also have been studying the legal aspects and the legal framework with reference to land tenure and property. And we have been training also all of our national counterparts. We are preparing now a new mapping of forest types with remote sensors.
Algunas lecciones aprendidas. La realización del inventario se hace mejor cuando tenemos ya la realización del inventario fue hecha con más awareness, ¿no? De la que existía en las diferentes instituciones, ya en términos de cooperación. Claro, necesitamos más desarrollar esta parte un poco más. También sabemos que después de este inventario tenemos ideas claras de la información que necesitamos. También sabemos de las faltas de información que tenemos y todo esto. La parte técnica, el soporte técnico que necesitamos para terminar este inventario, y sabemos que debemos preparar expertos que nos juzguen cuando sea necesario para esta parte del inventario.
During all these years, we learned several lessons. We grew aware of the fact that there are very many weaknesses in our different institutions in terms of cooperation, handling, storage, and updating of information. And after the inventory, we have a clear idea of what type of information is specifically needed. And we realized our lack of knowledge regarding our participation in different tasks leading to the inventory. We need more technical tools and software in order to improve our inventories. And we need repeated consultation with experts in these fields.
Continuando, sabemos que cuando se tiene la capacidad, aunque sea un pequeño grupo, se puede, y eso hemos logrado con este inventario. También de que la buena interacción entre las instituciones y los grupos que trabajan hace mejorar el trabajo. También hemos sabido que clarificando nuestras ideas y desarrollando capacidad podemos tratar esta parte de los inventarios. En resumen, y como dice acá, con todo este conocimiento y todas las habilidades que hemos podido conseguir de estos entrenamientos, lamentablemente no podemos seguir si no tenemos la capacidad y el soporte del programa. Por eso sería de suma importancia para nosotros que el programa continúe y nos sigan brindando el apoyo.
We also learned that small teams with limited resources can do the inventory, that we need more interaction between national coordinators and main stakeholders, and the project has clarified that we need more and more support by the program in order to improve our capacities.
We are deeply grateful to the German government and the Coalition for Foreign Nations for your generous support of your work and invaluable contribution to technical assistance. Thank you.
We want to hear about the CD-REDD in Malawi, and we have Njewa, who is the UNFCCC focal point for Malawi and the coordinator of national communications in the country and a climate change negotiator. Evans, you've got the floor.
Thank you very much, moderator, and good afternoon to all colleagues. You excuse me because I'll not give you a written PowerPoint presentation. Because of the lovely weather, I just realized that I left my USB on my bed this morning, but I'll make it available, I think, tomorrow when we come back. I'll give you just a run-through of where we are and what we have done in our CD-REDD program in Malawi. And here with me are two team members of our forestry sector, GHG inventory, seated in front here, Stella and Titus from the Department of Forestry. About 36% of Malawi's land is forest, so that's about a third of our land area is forestry. And the AFOLU in total sector contributes between 20 to 30% of our GHG emissions, and 70% of that total from the forestry sector comes from the changes in forestry or the biomass stocks. And the customary land forests give us the most effective sink of our carbon dioxide emissions. We have a team in place that is working on our REDD program, or the GHG inventory in the forest sector in Malawi. And as I said, two members are here with us. And last year, we did produce our draft report, which we submitted for review by the experts. Our activity data collection is not yet completed because we are waiting for the agriculture components, which have not been finalized yet. And we still have a few gaps that we have not completed yet in our inventory. For example, we are still missing the forestry age and the diameter classes. We do have missing information regarding our shifting cultivation, but also disturbances, especially fires and pests and diseases. As such, the AL workbook, as I said, is yet to be completed when those other sectors do get finalized. We have noted, coming from the calculations that we have done, that there is a negative change in the wood biomass area or sector, mainly coming from fuelwood harvesting. And this particularly is the use of firewood and charcoal, just like the DRC have shown us. Most of the countries in Africa, the people do generate their energy from firewood and charcoal. And we have a lower forest growth rate or recovery rate as compared to the harvesting of the resources for fuelwood. We have also noted that our two major drivers to our deforestation in Malawi is population growth, high population growth, and of course poverty. So majority of our people cannot afford electricity, and our electricity mainly comes from hydro. And I think up to about 9% of Malawians are connected to the grid. So the rest, 91% or so, do get their energy from fuelwood. We have a shortfall, of course, in the sense that unsustainable forest resource harvesting, as I mentioned, due to lack of forest management plans, is rampant. So we do not have vibrant forest management plans in the country. As such, we have that unsustainable resource harvesting in our forests. As a way forward, of course, we feel we do need more resources, of course, to strengthen the GHG forestry sector inventory system. So would love if maybe this project or support gets renewed. And on our institutional arrangements, the GHG REDD inventory work will get embedded in our third national communication, which we're about to start. In fact, we should have started last year, but we had some hiccups with the transferring of the funds from the UNEP. I've just been informed yesterday as I arrived here that our money is ready now in Malawi, so we will get started on our national communication, and this work will be incorporated in there. We are also planning to do our biannual update report, and this work we feel will also contribute. And thirdly, we have also engaged on a roadmap to develop our NAMA's framework. So this work will also feed into that NAMA process. And yes, with the, this work, we have just learned that it's ideal that we work as a team, and involving all the stakeholders will be important, and they've already been oriented in the process, and some have been already introduced to this work. And also the team doing the forestry sector. As I said, when they work together with the UNFC focal point, we were then able to move forward and then get this work feed into the national communication. I thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, let me just read out the list that we have so far, and if any others, just to put up your hands afterwards. So we got Tanzania, Brazil, Zambia, Liberia, and Ghana. Any others at this stage? No, you'll get a second chance afterwards in case there are more comments related to what is being said so far. Can I call on Tanzania then? Sorry, no. Okay, Tanzania.
Yep. Good morning, colleagues. Thank you, Madam Chair, for giving me this opportunity to ask a question. And I think I'm lucky. I'm the first one to ask the question in this conference. My question, I can call it as a concern. The way I see, and especially for the first presentation in this session, when we were trying to go through the progress of the CD-REDD project, I have seen Tanzania was not included in the list. So for me, it's a concern that, but it should be clearly noted that, as a matter of fact, the inception workshop for the GIZ inventory for the Eastern and Southern Africa was in Tanzania in 2010. And Tanzania hosted it. And also Tanzania was fully participated in the regional data correction in Berlin. It was in July 2011. So for me, this is a concern. I don't know what's happened. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Madam Chair, sorry.
Thank you. We will take a couple of questions and comments, and then I'll hand over to my panel members who would wish to reply to those. The next one on my list was Brazil.
Yes, thank you, Mette, and thank all the presenters for their exciting presentations and how they are moving on with this CD-REDD. My question specifically goes to Reinhard on his presentation, and maybe that's my own difficulty sometimes to separate greenhouse gas inventories from the REDD Plus approach and MRV for REDD Plus. So the first question would see, like for instance, one of the final slides has said full-fledged greenhouse gas accounting system. So I don't know if that's if it's seen like a prerequisite for REDD Plus, which I don't see personally, and from what has been the decisions. And also the different meaning of some terminologies that we have under inventories and for REDD Plus. More specifically, we don't use the word comparability for REDD Plus, but we do have something associated for inventories. And also the completeness. Complete for REDD Plus has a different meaning of complete for greenhouse gas inventories. So I was a little bit confused because we are tackling this. I see this conference being a REDD Plus related conference. So I would like to seek some clarification on that. Also, putting in place and running a high-quality national inventory system, which is not also a prerequisite for REDD Plus, as we all know. So I was a little bit confused between the relationship that is being given from building up a greenhouse gas inventory and the requirements that we have for REDD Plus to be considered to be in place for results-based payments. Basically, that's my main question. And just as a complementation of I've used the mic as I have, I really loved the film that we have seen for Congo. But in particular, I would like to reinforce the statement that was given by Maria Sanz in her statement regarding accuracy. The more important thing to maintain consistency and accuracy will come as time goes and we get more able as developing countries to do our REDD Plus estimation or measurements. I see also that from your presentation, Wolf, that accuracy was the lowest, achievement, but that is expected to be so. And I would not see that as an impediment for REDD Plus to receive payments, to tell you the truth. Thank you.
Thank you, Thelma. The next one on my list was Zambia.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Francis Yamba from Zambia. I'm very encouraged by the results from the video you saw on Congo and also from what my colleague from Malawi said concerning the drivers of deforestation. What is coming out now from studies basically is that agriculture, of course, land claim for agriculture is one of the drivers. And charcoal production is also predominant. And you saw on the picture there, charcoal is being produced. And during that production, the emissions being given. Then that charcoal goes to the end use, where it is used for cooking. And thus, again, from there, we are getting the emissions coming out. Now, if you look at the methodologies, IP's methodologies, I'm sure Tetema can give more explanation on this. 1996, yes, it was a bit versatile. You can take account of these sources. When you come to 2006, yes, if you look through those guidelines, it's not explicit how to get those emissions from charcoal production, which is a big driver in our setups. And also subsequently the emissions coming from the burning of that charcoal, in addition, of course, to firewood. We've been trying to use the ALO software for that purpose, and we've been battling to see how that can be integrated. Maybe as we go along, we'll be able to see how that can work out. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we will pass on these 3 comments and questions to my fellow presenters here, at least at the board, and then we will take Liberia, Ghana, and Suriname. He wants to answer on Tanzania. Reinhard, yes.
Thank you, and I think I would like to pass the word to Carsten, who has been in the team of the Tünen Institute, and who was more or less taking care of this cluster, which included Tanzania. So, please.
Does it work? Yeah. Thank you, Reinhard. During the course of the project, we are trying to be working at the pace of the countries, and that is the basic principle. And as we started with the kickoffs and different collaborations also with other projects, then we try to figure out how work could best be organized. And then we carried out the first activities, like the first workshop in Berlin, and I remind our honorable colleague from Tanzania that your colleagues or you joined also this workshop, and we worked on the basic things and on the first steps towards the inventory. And then somehow during the course of the work, we figured out that there should be some arrangements made in the countries, and there should be some preparations made in the country. And as we are trying to work step by step with the countries, during that phase, it got a little bit silent. So I have to tell, to be frank with that, it got a little bit silent with Tanzania. We were always, or we are still always open to restart and to be more active there, as our time and our budget is allowing that. And so, that is actually the fact, and that is the answer on that question. And but on the other hand, maybe we should again get closer together and bring that things up again, and let's see what we still can do, and what happens in the next time with the next activities, with following up projects. Or also I have to point out that we have that collaboration there with our colleagues from the US, which are also carrying out projects there, and we are closely collaborating. And as you've heard, that we at the moment we have the timetable that we can work on until mid of the year. I think your timetable is a little bit longer, and then we, as we are closely collaborating, we can easily trust in you that you are following up. Then, if we are not anymore able to do, I would say.
Thank you. Reinhard, do you want to take the one from Brazil as well?
Yes, and it's a difficult question, and I think you have got us somehow on the spot, and to a certain way you are right. The terms we used, for example, full-fledged greenhouse gas inventory and also high-quality inventory, they are non-scientific terms. So, and indeed, let's say this REDD system and the reporting system are still separate, even though they are interlinked. I think what we wanted to express with the term full-fledged greenhouse gas inventory and high quality was, the better you are, the easier it is. And still, and I'm not a reporting expert, and maybe others then also can comment that they are interlinked, and if you do a very good reporting and inventory, then it's much easier for the REDD sector. So this was the main message. But in the most points, I think you are right, and maybe others also can complement. Thank you.
Okay. For Zambia, drivers of deforestation, charcoal production, and assessing the emissions from that, do we have any comments from our panel members? Suggestions? Or from the floor? Okay, we will try and see if we can come up with an answer for Zambia during the day and tomorrow. Next on my list is Liberia.
Thank you very much. Let me join my boss to commend the donors for the support, and also to the leadership of the Coalition of Rainforest Nations for supporting the coalition, members of the coalition, to ensure that we participate and articulate the issue of REDD, especially at the international negotiation. You may all know that in the coming years, the issue of REDD will be scaled up, and it requires the commitment of members of the coalition to work seriously to make REDD Plus workable. You know, REDD, there are a lot of myths associated with REDD, and if we cannot make REDD workable, then it means we don't have job. So man tax is to convince policymakers to ensure that REDD Plus works. Because in Liberia, as far as we're concerned, once it comes to forest, is the issue of cutting down the trees. It is business as usual. But man tax is to convince policymakers this time around to look at another new initiative that ensures sustainable development and economic development. So it is man tax. That's why to convince my boss to come here was not easy. But I'm happy she's here. Now that she's here, it makes my work very easy when we get back. Yes, thank you very much. So all I want to say that thank you so much to the donor community so that we can all work to address the issue of REDD Plus. Because as far as we're concerned, there are people that on the other side want to ensure that business as usual. And we have to work hard. So say, no, let us look at REDD. It is a new initiative that provides an opportunity, for sustainable development. Again, I want to say thank you very much.
Thank you, Liberia. Ghana.
Thank you. First of all, let me thank all the presenters for their very insightful presentations. My question actually cuts across. It has to do with implementing the REDD Plus on the ground, where the basic information required is REDD greenhouse gas inventory data. This data has to be very transparent. And we were told by FAO that the key principle here is country ownership of whatever system that we put in place. Now my question is, to what extent are we relating our local communities to the systems that we develop or design and implement on the ground? The local communities are the ones we're going to count on to protect our resources. How have we built their capacity to inspire them to do this? We have a core inventory team at the national level doing this. They can't do this all the time. So there has to be a training of these trainers to pass on whatever knowledge that we have acquired on the ground, so they will be more inspired, more motivated to protect their resource and know how much they will derive in terms of benefits on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you, Ghana. Suriname, if I got that right. Yes.
Thank you. It is a pleasure to be here this morning. My colleagues and I are really enjoying this conference. We have been involved in the last 3 years in all the activities. So we are very thankful for REDD Plus, the Forest Coalition, and FAO is also organizing. For us, it's a great opportunity. For me, I'm an agronomist, and this is the first time that I put foot in this building. So it's a milestone that we are at the FAO. We have been participating in this, all these activities, and in our country, the framework, the logistic framework, that is a major key point, is still not in place. It looks that we are not doing so much, but yet we have accomplished a lot, because now by participating in the draft for the greenhouse inventory, we are able now to have seen all the steps that are necessary and to work on the weak parts in order to get all the second and third national communication. My question this morning is specific for the presenter from the Dominican Republic. Somewhere in your speech, you mentioned that energy, transport, and forestry are major key emission factors, but later on it was mentioned that there is an environmental expert and also an agriculture expert in the team, inventory team, but yet when I heard livestock and agriculture, I would like to know some more details about that and how it is incorporated in your greenhouse inventory. Thank you.
Okay, shall we start from the end of this? Yeah.
Well, as you saw in the presentation, we have the first workshop, the kick-off workshop in March 2012. And as we did, this workshop was for the whole country. I mean, after this workshop, we had to select from the audience of the participants the people who were going to be on the team. And that's what we get. We need people from different areas, from forestry, livestock, agriculture, and, well, environmental science. That's nothing literally to have with this, but the people from agricultural sector and livestock work with collecting data from this area, livestock and agriculture. Forestry in my country is one of the major sectors, but you have to work with livestock and agriculture for land representation. You have to have all the information available for those areas. So, agriculture and livestock are part of the forestry inventory now because they have a contribution in this area. But like you saw, we are trying to have independence information on forestry, just all for forestry area. That's for the reason I said that we are going to have more accuracy inventory in the future because we are working with rapid eye imagining to have a more accuracy forestry inventory now. But even those agriculture and livestock not belong to the forestry area, that have bigger contribution in my country, and we are working in those areas too. I don't know if this answers your question.
If not, we can have it over coffee or lunchtime, perhaps. We heard very clearly the suggestion from Ghana on involvement of the local communities as well and the need for training of trainers. I don't know if there's anybody on the panel that wants to have a comment on that. Just to reiterate, Heinrich, yeah?
I can start, but I then think maybe others can tell from their own country experience. So implementation of REDD on the ground and involvement of local communities. So my thought is that it shouldn't be really new because I go back to UNFF, United Nations Forum of Forest. I think all the countries usually are committed to sustainable forest management. And this should be a practice already. And in this respect, if this is done well, then REDD should not be a big problem. And then you should expect that, well, even in the past, community should have been involved. And I've been working 10 years in Africa, and we tried to involve the local community. In the Central African Republic, I was there, and we tried to work with the presidents and so on. So this, I think, shouldn't be new, and it's up to the country how best, according to their own circumstances, they organize it. But maybe other countries can give some good examples how to do it. What is a different case is maybe benefit sharing, and there are some good examples. Vietnam has drafted a concept, and I know Brazil in Acre, they have already started, and to also how to structure this benefit sharing, involve also share the benefits with indigenous peoples and so on. So there are some good examples where I think you can look at it. But maybe there's from some countries there are also some good examples on involvement of local communities. Thank you.
Anybody sitting in with a burning question or?
Thanks, our moderator. I was looking at Stella here, and she seems to have an additional maybe explanation to the involvement of the communities, local communities, and maybe something on the charcoal issue. Stella?
Microphone to the front row, please.
Thank you very much, Chairperson and Evans, for putting me on the spot. Anyway, my comment is not very different from what Reinhard has highlighted. Forestry activities in Malawi, they take place in number of forms depending on the land tenure status. So we have public forests where we have plantations and forest reserves. In the plantations, we do not have participatory forest management yet, but in forest reserves, we have participatory forest management, and we call it core management activities. So we have both the state at central level, local government, and the communities taking responsibility in managing these forest reserves. And most of the data that we have used has come from these core management activities that we have used for the CD-REDD activity data collection. And on customary forests, we are using also a participatory forest management approaches. And even under GIS, we have what is called participatory GIS. Of course, the participatory GIS was only localized in a certain area because it was project funded. But otherwise, we are trying to involve the communities in forest management activities, in all the sustainable forest management activities as per the forest policy of 1996. So inclusion of communities has been mainstreamed already. Thank you. On the charcoal, charcoal is a tough issue. It's a very contentious issue in Malawi because we are looking at sustainable forest management, and we are also looking at sustainable livelihoods, and we're also looking at sustainable energy provision for the country. So it is very difficult. But recently, we have an opportunity where we are going to have a number of studies on how we can certify and produce charcoal sustainably. And this project is under the Environmental Affairs Department. It is being supported by the Global Environmental Facility, through the UNDP. So we are expecting that the studies from the from this feasibility study will bring a number of recommendations on how we can sustainably produce charcoal using the current framework that we have, the National Forestry Policy, as well as the Forestry Act. But otherwise, all the charcoal that is being produced in Malawi is not being produced sustainably. As a result, it is a very big threat to forest management and is a big driver to forest management. In this study, we have, in the GHG inventory, we have looked at charcoal production, not as charcoal production as such, but just the areas that have been cleared, the areas that have been deforested, for fuel wood or charcoal production, but not specifically for charcoal. As Professor Yamba has stated, we did not have those tools on calculating GHG emissions specifically from charcoal production. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it's clear that charcoal is an issue that's prevalent in many of the African countries in particular, and maybe that's something that we should note down that once you have finalized your studies, I think it would be very useful to share that with other countries. But also the need for more specific guidance on how we measure the emissions from charcoal production. I saw one hand just behind you who might be able to tell us how to do this.
Yeah, the IPCC indeed estimated the emissions associated with charcoal. The way is as a losses of biomass from forest. So within the fuel wood amount, you have also the amount of fuel wood that has been harvested for producing the charcoal. All this carbon is then assumed to be oxidized when is harvested. So maybe you have to pay attention if your fuel wood statistics include also the fuel wood used for charcoal production, because if this is the case, you are estimating the carbon losses. Then the losses due to the use of charcoal, you have also methane and nitrous oxide emissions. This should be estimated in the energy sector, because charcoal is a biofuel, so it's bioenergy. And there, when you use it, you have these emissions. And also in the energy sector, there are emission factors for the charcoal use. So I guess it's covered.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching. For more information, see cdred.org.